absolutely dreadful episode of Monday Night Raw. Not good. So I'm going to give it the review that it deserves. It was awful. But you got to go piece by piece. WrestleMania is not even looking good anymore. All of y'all who was around here crackling fireworks for Triple H, I'm telling you, that wick lit a long time ago. I was unhappy with how he dealt with NXT, especially when we got to a certain point, maybe 2017, 2018. I was really unhappy with NXT. 2019 threw me over a bridge. We haven't gotten there quite yet. Again, I told you I'm going to give Triple H to WrestleMania. But, there's been a couple of things that have come out that's going to be worth talking about before we talk about this brutal Monday Night Raw. But I'm looking at Raw right now and saying that Triple H, you think he's better than Vince? Oh, boy. Oh, God. Ooh. It's Vince without the fun. That's what this is. It's literally ice cream without the milk and the sugar and all that stuff. They like their ice cream simile. I like vanilla. He likes chocolate. It's like, how about somebody make some damn ice cream? How about that? This is frozen yogurt or something like that. Well, that's even sweeter than this. Anyway, let's go talk about a couple of things first before we finally get into Monday Night Raw from February the 27th, the last Raw of February. All right. One of the talking points all day has been the speculation that Kenny Omega is willing and interested in joining WWE. I don't believe it. To be quite honest, it's not even worth entertaining. And really, what's not worth entertaining also was this whole debate about whether he should go to NXT first. Like, this guy couldn't finish Deep South. Why even bother sending him to the Performance Center? What I would say, though, is that any interest, quote unquote, that he might have is just a negotiation tactic. And I doubt sincerely he will be seriously considering coming to WWE. I don't think anybody in AEW at the top is seriously considering coming to WWE. I just don't believe it. Not him or the Young Bucks. It's just not believable. They've created a perfect thing for themselves and their audience, and they can have fun with it, even if they're not making the money that they think they should, even if they're not as powerful as they think they should be. There's no reason for them to blow it up. They're not going to make perfect the enemy of good. And in this situation, they're in a really good position. They're executive vice presidents in AEW. They can get whoever they want hired. They can get whoever they want pushed. They can de-push whoever they want. They can choose their own opponents. They can choose their own feuds. They can do whatever they want. Why in the world would they going to go work for somewhere where they're not going to get any executive privilege? They're not going to get to handpick their opponents, and they're going to have to work house shows, and then of course have to work TV matches that are going to be significantly shorter, even in the Triple H era, than what they're used to. I mean, think about this. Kenny Omega is now still wrestling 20, 25-minute matches just in trios form. WWE is not about to dedicate 25 minutes of TV time to Kenny Omega to do flips over the top rope and Terminator hand slaps on the mat. You forget it. And I don't think his character work is strong enough anyway. Kenny Omega comes across to me like another Sting. A guy who's going to be a big star outside of the WWE, and everybody's going to be like, what if? And then maybe deep into the future, when his career is really, really, really on the downslide, he may pop in for a short run here and there, but it's going to be beyond his retirement. And maybe he'd do like a Ricky Steamboat situation where he comes in at 50, does a couple of things, and then everybody's like, oh, he gets welcomed into the family, and they talk about how great he is and all that kind of stuff. But that's about it. I don't see him coming to WWE to have a run. I just don't see it. And it wouldn't make any sense. And let's be quite honest. If Kenny Omega was to leave, that would be the death knell for AEW. And not from a TV ratings or a ticket drawing perspective, because I don't think he really moves things that much. But I think as far as ripping out the literal heart and soul of AEW, pulling Kenny Omega and Cody And losing CM Punk. That's a little much to ask that audience to deal with. And they have yet to replace anybody that they lost. And plus, it's just bad business to go out on television and say, I'm AEW through and through. I want to be AEW forever. Only guys can get away with that is Jericho and Moxley because A, they know that it's not true. They can always go back to WWE if they wanted to. And B, they've already made their money. Again, anytime somebody comes out and they talk about, money doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, that doesn't matter, you can just assume that they've already made it. And they're just trying to make you feel too bad, not feel too bad, so you can make these decisions that's going to impoverish you. But Kenny Omega is making plenty of money. He's got a great spot. Why would he jump to WWE? What would be the reason? The only reason would be if he's forced out, and I doubt that happens, or if he can't be afforded. I believe he would probably take a pay cut to work in AEW. I just don't think he's interested in being in WWE. Same thing can be said for Phil. I don't think Phil's coming back either. And the same can be said for the Young Bucks. I just don't think they're coming. All right. What other speculation is floating around out there? Okay. This one's speculation. Triple H apparently wants a shorter WrestleMania card with fewer matches, or he's not going to try to, quote, get everybody on the card, which to me did not really seem like it was Vince's idea, because there would be times where the Intercontinental Champion wouldn't be on the show. There would be times where there would be plenty of guys who didn't make the show. So the idea that Vince was just cramming the show full of triple threat matches and 6-man tags and all that kind of stuff is not true. There were times where there were probably matches that could have been cut, but Vince's thing was some matches go longer than others. Some guys are in there to do comedy. Some guys are in there to do like hard-hitting, real pro wrestling stuff. Some people are in there to work main events. Some people are in there to work mid-cards. And that means that the show is going to be longer or shorter depending on that. But not just because we have to throw people on the show. Because if he would have done that, there would have been plenty of guys who would have been on these shows. And then it's weird for people to argue this. At the same time, demanding a ladder match of any kind on WrestleMania. It's like, oh, well, we need to have Money in the Bank. So having the Battle Royal on the show, which they haven't done in a couple of years, well, that's just throwing people on the show. But having a ladder match for the Intercontinental title or a Money in the Bank, that's not just throwing people on the show. Again, asking for consistency from these people. I don't want ladder matches at all at WrestleMania unless you build to it. There has to be a reason for the ladder match to exist. And I don't think Gunther is the kind of guy you want to do a ladder match with. Why would you want to put him in a ladder match at the biggest show possible? And you're trying to build this guy to be a star in the future. You're going to put him in a ladder match? What he's going to do, chop the ladder? It doesn't do him any good. You're supposed to show your guys in their best light. Some guys shine better in ladder matches, the ricochets and that kind of stuff. But Gunther needs to have a solid main event level one-on-one match at WrestleMania. Now the idea of having a shorter card, 5 or 6 matches per night, I think 6 is probably about the sweet spot. If you give the big matches enough time. I'm not really tripping on it, to be quite honest. I really don't care how they structure WrestleManias. It doesn't really, as long as the show is not 10 hours, we should be okay. We should be all right as long as the show's not super long. And as long as, the matches on the show make sense. And looking at the card thus far, the matches on the show don't make sense. They don't make sense. They're literally poofed out of nowhere, to be quite honest. But he helped build the bloodline story. Yeah, sure. What about everything else, though? What about everything else? All right. There is no real news to discuss when it comes to WWE. There's just a lot of speculation. Okie dokie. So we can move into this crappy show now. All right. So Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa defeated the Street Profits. Poor Street Profits. That's all I can say is they've just been losing to everybody. This went from being a red hot babyface tag team about 3 or 4 years ago to just being sort of the gatekeepers of tag team wrestling. They just get beat by everybody. Jimmy Uso basically started the show by saying there is no cracks in the bloodline. Family fight all the time. This is what they do. Montez Ford mocked this whole thing, calling out Jay, saying, "Where is Jay?" Called Roman Reigns the absent chief instead of the tribal chief, which was pretty funny. After the match, the Usos 2.0, they continued to beat up on the Street Profits until Kevin Owens came out there and saved them. Kevin Owens, I think he super kicked Solo Sikoa and gave Jimmy Uso a stunner. Afterwards, Baron Corbin interview was interrupted again, this time to talk to Kevin Owens, where Kevin Owens said that the bloodline is getting the consequences of their actions and that he doesn't need or want help from anyone. He's going to take down the bloodline solo. Again, he's Sting. He's AJ Styles, and this is aces and eights because reasons. Everybody's just putting on a hoodie and sliding in the ring and attacking random Samoans. That's really all they're doing. Except Kevin Owens is fighting them, and Sami Zayn is trying to talk him down. He's a negotiator. Have you seen that movie? Have you seen the movie Negotiator? Me and my brother love that movie. It's one of our favorite movies. I haven't seen that movie in a long, long time. Now that I've talked about it, I need to go watch it. One of my favorite Samuel L. Jackson movies is The Negotiator. It was fantastic. Fantastic film. Okay. Moving along. Brock Lesnar has come out to accept Omos's challenge. Told MVP that there is no beef. It's all business. He's here to listen. And he wants MVP to sell him on this fight. So MVP is tentative in getting in the ring, thinking he's going to get suplexed. Brock is like, no suplexes. He's got his country bumpkin Appalachian Brock voice going on. No suplexes tonight. Then he gives MVP the floor and allows MVP to sell him on a match with Omos. MVP starts breaking it down that Brock Lesnar, he could put his hands on somebody, he could tear him apart, he could do whatever he wanted to a normal man, but he couldn't handle the Almighty. He had to kick him low. And he says, if you can't handle the Almighty, then you certainly can't handle the Nigerian giant Omos. And he kind of put Omos over, how Omos can do all these horrible things to Brock. And so Brock is like, all right, I accept your challenge. Then said that they should drink and shake on it. MVP wants to drink champagne. Brock wants to drink motor oil, apparently. He did intimidate MVP into drinking White Lightning, which I never had before. I'm not much of a drinker, to be quite honest, but White Lightning doesn't sound tantalizing at all. Brock throws back a shot, woo-ha, and then the MVP tries to throw back a shot, but he can't handle his liquor, and he spits it out, and he spits it all over Brock. And that earned him an F5. You would think it would have earned him 2 or 3, but it only earned him 1. It only earned him 1. Okay, so the Clash of the Titans, Brock Lesnar versus Omos, and the internet collectively groaned. I'm not going to lie, I joined them in this, mainly because we just went through this whole thing with Triple H wanting to have only certain talents make the WrestleMania card. And everybody's got it in their mind like, yeah, only the people who bust their ass all year round should get the WrestleMania card, bro. Yeah, man. Only the people, the work rate guys, man. The workhorses, the people who do all of the heavy lifting in the company, they should make WrestleMania. And then Omos gets on the card. Omos, a guy who's been on literally like 2 pay-per-views all year. I think both losses. I think he lost to Braun Strowman, and who else did he lose to? Was it was Bobby Lashley last year? I think he beat Bobby Lashley in the rematch last year. So he was on there 3 times in 1 calendar year. But he's about to get a match with Brock Lesnar. Now, I'm not against this because I don't like Omos. I'm against this because it leaves the Brock Lesnar-Bobby Lashley feud unfinished. That's why I'm against this. And if you follow my channel, you know I don't hate Omos. Omos has roller coaster times where he's good, then he sucks, then he's good, and he sucks. It all depends. He's very green. He moves like a giant. What do you think he's going to do? You think he's going to start doing headlock takeovers and 450 splashes? The guy's 7 feet tall. He's not going to do that stuff. He's going to wrestle a typical big man match. But because he's so large, it's going to really put Brock over when he suplexes him, when he picks him up to do the F5 on him. It's all going to make Brock look like he's an absolute giant slayer. And that's probably what Brock wants. So, yes, I fully believe that Brock probably was like, Bray Wyatt, nope, I'm not doing that. Not crossing that bridge. No way, buddy. We're not doing the Bray thing. I'll do Omos instead. Because the Omos thing don't have to be long. The build-up is going to be simple. They're going to throw each other around. This week he got his hands on MVP. Give Omos a reason to chase him down. Omos is probably going to put him through a table, throw him all over the place, or whatever the case. Brock is going to get the bump and sell, which he doesn't necessarily mind doing. And he's really going to make Omos look like something. And I don't mind it. Look, Omos is the kind of guy you can make some money with. He's not going to be an every week guy. He's probably not going to be an every month guy. But he's a guy you can put in a situation to make some money with him. So Brock is looking at this, and he got that Hulk Hogan in him. That Hulkster. You look at somebody, do you see dollar signs, dollar signs, dollar signs, dollar signs? And I think Brock looked at Omos and was like, dollar signs. Dollar signs. I can do this. He either wants the match easy, where his opponent is really, really small, he can just throw the guy around. Or if he do want to wrestle a bigger guy, it's got to be somebody he can feel like he can make some money with. Why not go with Lesnar and Lashley, the final chapter? I don't know. But this feels like Brock pulled a card and was like, I'm not doing the Bray Wyatt thing. And I don't really want to wrestle Lashley again. Because you don't want WrestleMania to be like 90% rematches. Which is, an issue that we could have here. Is, a lot of these matches could end up being rematches. So they decided to go with the freak show fight. The spectacle. Brock Lesnar versus Omos. And I like it for that perspective because it is a spectacle. You'll probably never see this match again. That ought to be the case. But Brock is officially in his Undertaker era, where he's now got to wrestle guys where he don't really want to wrestle, that the company is trying to get over, or guys that he's handpicking, and the company's just kind of like, well, we need you on the card, so go for it. MVP's got more than the promos handled, so that ought to be fine. My question is, are Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander going to get involved? Like, what are we going to do here, from that perspective? But I don't want this match to happen, but I don't hate that this match is happening. I wanted a conclusion to Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. That's what I wanted. So for me, I'm okay with the first ever clash of the Titans, Brock and Omos. I'm okay with that. I just wish they'd have finished up the Brock Lesnar story first and not left that dangling thread there. I'm not a fan of that. All right, let's move on. Lita and Becky are backstage. Both of them are talking about this being a bucket list thing for them. Becky Lynch always wanted to team with Lita. She's also wanted to be a tag team champion ever since those titles were created. And Lita says that she's got one more run in her. This is one more thing that she wanted to do. And Becky Lynch said there's no woman she respects more, and is no woman she's more willing to fight by their side. Okay. Later, we got a Damage Control promo where basically Bayley did the talking because she's always doing the talking. Nobody else talks in Damage Control, apparently. Probably for the right reasons. But Damage Control says basically they've been running around teaching all these fake teams that they don't belong for several months now. and that Becky Lynch and Lita are a fake team, and that this is about their championships. This is about their legacy. This is their story. Then we had the main event, match 7. And I've already told you, if there's a wrestling show and there's more than 6 matches, it's probably shit. And I'm telling you, it keeps happening. You know, it keeps happening. If it's more than 6 matches on a television show, it probably sucks. And this show had 7. So I'll tell you, it's not good. Lita and Becky Lynch defeat Damage Control to win the Women's Tag Team Championships. This was the right decision. It was the right decision on multiple different reasons. These belts were ice cold on Damage Control. Now, talking about the match itself, there was very little energy from the crowd, especially early in the match. They had just sat through 2 hours and 40 minutes of absolute unfiltered basura. So, of course, they were not happy when this match happened. They couldn't have cared less, to be quite honest. But by the end, you know, when Trish Stratus came to make the run out and made the save on Bayley, you know, people were like, okay, she got involved and she was mixing it up, and Lita was making the big comeback, and people was into it by the time, you know, the 3 count actually happened. But I'm telling you, early they struggled. They struggled, man. Give these girls the credit that they deserve for getting in there and getting busy and finally getting this over. Becky Lynch, kudos to her. Salute her, because she did a really good job of being a babyface in peril. Io and Dakota were fine. You know, Io can clearly do better, but Dakota is just a serviceable heel. Damage Control they don't really lose a lot by losing this match, mainly because they had nothing going for them anyway. This was perfect timing too, because, you know, Ronda Rousey was on Twitter harassing Bayley about the tag team championships and how much time the women get on SmackDown. You know how she is. You know how Ronda Rousey has these spurts of all of a sudden she's, you know, goddamn Gloria Steinem. All of a sudden she wants to be a feminist leader today. So she's, you know, I'm tired of all the crumbs of the women's division. What's up with these tag team championships, bro? And it's like, yeah, I already see where we're going with this. Probably a fatal 4-way match. I can see that coming right now. Because Damage Control probably going to get a rematch. And then it's going to be Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey. And then maybe Chelsea Green and Carmella. But we'll talk about that when we get there. But Lita and Becky Lynch winning the titles put some heat back on these belts that have been cold for a while. I know Dakota Kai got injured, and that kind of put the skids on everything. It also put the skids on this feud, because clearly the dirt sheets were actually onto something with Trish Stratus coming back on this show in front of this dead effing crowd, because this thing would have been huge if she'd have came back in Canada. If she'd have came back in Montreal or in Ottawa while they were in Canada, it would have been a big deal. The only reason why they wouldn't have done it then is because Dakota Kai couldn't go yet. Even though you could have done it a different way, you could have did Freebird rules where Bayley defended the titles, and, you know, since Io was the one taking the pin anyway, you could have just had Bayley in the match and took Dakota's spot. So it's seeming like they're going to build to maybe a 6-woman tag if they're not going to do the women's tag team championships. If they're going to do a 6-woman tag at WrestleMania, which is, I think, probably more likely the response. So Ronda Rousey wants the tag team championship. She can forget it, because they're going to be busy at WrestleMania. They're wrestling Damage Control. I would prefer if we just do Damage Control versus Lita, Becky, and Trish on Raw. And, well, maybe, you know what? It doesn't really matter where you do it. Trish Stratus should wrestle at WrestleMania. I mean, why not? So, this Becky Lynch and Lita tag team thing ain't going to last very long. They might even just lose the belts back to Damage Control, which would suck, considering that's almost exactly how Damage Control got the belts in the first place. They won, and then they lost them, and then they won them right back. So, that's what happens when you can't maintain your heat. And it's basically because they're not any good. Interestingly enough, as I rip Damage Control pretty much every week, Bayley did an interview with Ariel Helwani, where she basically said that Triple H hadn't taken over, there would be no Damage Control. Because, the previous administration, she basically said Vince, wasn't really interested in putting her with a group. And she basically would be almost exactly what she was before if Damage Control had not been put together and have, she hadn't left. If Vince hadn't left, rather. And then she starts talking about the people she wanted in it. And she wanted Peyton Royce and she wanted Tegan Knox. And I was just I listened to that and I was like, this is example 4080 of why Vince don't listen to fucking wrestlers, man. You don't listen to wrestlers. The people that you like are not always the best people to be put in groups. Again, CM Punk came out with the Shield. That was awesome. But then he wanted to put Chris Hero in it. And everybody's looking like, Chris Hero? I know that all the independent wrestling fans are like, man, Chris Hero missed the boat on something huge. You have to ask yourself, why was he the one that WWE looked at and said, yeah, this one, not going to happen. You want to put Ambrose and you want to put Rollins? Okay. But Chris Hero? Cassius Ono? No. We're going to put our guy in that spot. I think that if Bayley had, batted her eyes a little bit more and maybe pouted a little bit, Vince would have let her put together a stable. But he definitely would have just said a no-go on the Dakota Kai thing and probably a no-go on Tegan Knox. He fired them just to make sure it didn't happen. But he probably would have put his own girls in it, which, would have been an interesting way of doing things. Like, what would Damage Control look like if it was, under Vince McMahon? That I wish we could find that out because it might be infinitely more interesting than Damage Control now. And look, I like Io, but she's not doing the best right now, and she's fantastic, but she's not doing great right now, and it's 100% because she's in Damage Control. If she was by herself, I don't think she would be like top level female wrestler right now. But she would at least have an opportunity to show more of what she can do and show more of her personality. Being stuck in this stable, she's just behind Bayley, who's very, very loud. And they clearly see Dakota Kai as being the second in command, being that she's the one who speaks English, But to me, it's the shits. Damage Control sucks. Kudos to Lita. Because she's won a championship again. First time, long time. It's just to help the division. You could tell that they're actually listening to people and they're trying to build a division. They're trying to put a division together. So Lita's coming back to help with that. I don't have no problem with that. As long as they lose the titles to people who matter, I would say they should hold them until Ronda and Shayna can get them. Who knows how long that would be. But the idea that we're going to have that 6-woman tag at WrestleMania seems goofy to me. I think we should just go ahead and do Ronda and Shayna as quickly as possible. But whatever. It is what it is, bruh. 9 o'clock occurred. That's Cody Rhodes' time. It's the supreme mathematics. 9 o'clock, Cody. So Cody wrestles Chad Gable. Triple H's favorite wrestler. I'm pretty sure Chad Gable in his locker at the PC or something like that, he's probably got like a safe. And inside that safe is all of Triple H's NDAs. For all the, indie female wrestlers, he's probably bent over his desk or something. There's just no excuse for Chad Gable to get long matches on every single goddamn Raw since Triple H took over. He is featured on every single one and featured prominently. And wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't this guy basically being a hamster on a wheel. He gets him a good match. And that's all he really does. He loses. And next week we just do the same thing all over again. Had a solid enough match with Cody. Cody's a good worker, of course, and so is Chad Gable. He could do the moves. And finally, he's gotten a personality, so it's actually pretty over. Cody slides outside the ring and actually pulls a comedy spot with Otis, whereas, he's showing Maxine Dupree to Otis, and, she's a pretty girl. She's a pretty girl. And Otis is distracted, momentarily at least. Then he starts stalking Cody, and Cody kind of matadors him over the barricade. Cody hits the Cody Cutter, followed by the Crossroads for the win. I still hate the Cody Cutter. It's a stupid move. The guy jumps to the top rope and then jumps off, and it's goofy. It's just a goofy damn finish. After the match, Cody Rhodes gets on the microphone and says that it's 4 weeks until WrestleMania, and he has yet to share a ring with the champion Roman Reigns. And he says he's glad to hear that Roman's going to be on SmackDown because he's going to be there too. Which was kind of a threat. And that led me to really kind of rolling my eyes, because I'm this, and there was another somebody on this show. I'm pretty sure we'll get to him eventually, where it just seems like they're just doing face-off after face-off after face-off after face-off. It's like, it's Austin Theory. I'm going to confront. We need to look at each other face to face. I'm just kind of like, man, how many times have they done this gimmick in 2 weeks? It's like they've done 7 of these things already. It's nonsense. So now Cody's going to SmackDown. He's just going to SmackDown. Paul Heyman is the one who added that he's going to confront Roman Reigns. Or he's going to be confronted by Roman Reigns. But Paul made it sound much worse than it really is. He's invading the island of relevancy. You're like, oh, that's how you choose to see it. Can't argue with you if that's how you choose to see it. What are we going to do about that? All right. So Cody and Roman are going to finally look at each other eye to eye at and stand under the WrestleMania banner this Friday. That ought to be fun. And then it's just going to be a bunch of guys staring at each other all week. Rhea has already stared at Charlotte. Now Cody's going to stare at Roman. And next week, Seth Rollins is going to stare at Logan Paul. And then Cena is going to stare at Austin Theory. Everybody's just going to stare at everybody. And then eventually we'll stare until the point of WrestleMania. Then people will stop staring at each other and actually start having matches and stuff. But whatever. They showed the Titanic commercial for Bianca Belair and Montez Ford. I thought it was very cute. Haven't seen the Titanic in a long time, but I do remember this scene. So it was actually pretty cute. The comedic part is Montez tried to take a selfie and ends up dropping the cell phone into the ocean or whatever. Which of course he had to be the goofball, right? Goofball husband. How about that for a recurring theme in all commercials? But at least Montez Ford kind of comes across as a guy who does a good goofball husband. At least he's not Fred Flintstone or Homer Simpson. He's not Cliff Huxtable. He's not wearing sweater vests and chubby, and she's telling him what to eat and everything. But he's still a goofball husband. Anyway, I liked it ultimately, but I'm going to note that it's a goofball husband. Moving on to Judgment Day. So they had a backstage promo. You could tell the difference between Vince and Triple H with this here. Vince would have put him in a dark room, like smoke and purple lighting and all that kind of stuff, right? Would have created an ambiance around Judgment Day. Triple H put them in the back on the boxes with the boring background and everything. Basically, it's just a promo talking to a roving camera. And everybody's bragging about what they did or what they will do. Dominic, talked about Rhea. and says that he wants to have a heart-to-heart with Ray. So yeah, he wants to have another face-off with Ray. And that Rey Mysterio is now in ex-Con Dom's prison. So he's calling himself ex-Con Dom now. It's hilarious. Rhea said she looked into Charlotte's eyes and she saw something worse than fear. She saw acceptance. And that, Charlotte will continue to struggle, but she's going to eventually accept her fate. And Finn Balor says that Edge doesn't decide when this thing is over. It's over when he says it's over. And that he has one more match, a challenge for Edge at WrestleMania. So Edge, Finn Balor, WrestleMania. Okie dokie. I'm guessing this is going to be the vaunted Demon versus Vampire Brood Edge match. All right. As long as this is the last one and we don't get any more after this. In fact, we need to put them on different brands, right? We need like a hard brand split in like May and then just call it a day. We're done with that. Let's back up a little bit because I forgot about Otis because it was so stupid. After Chad Gable lost, Otis was backstage, and Otis was I guess you could say confronted, or he was. I don't want to say confronted because that's what Cody's going to do to Roman. Apparently, that's what Ray is going to do to Dominic, or Dominic's going to do to Ray. I mean, that's a confrontation. He was approached by Maxine Dupree, who says that he's raw sexuality or something like that. It was really gross. Anyway, she wanted to see him in action, and they're willing to be in his corner if he gets a match. So now Otis is very excited. He wants to have a match. So he went to Adam Pearce to get this match. And apparently this match ended up being with Johnny by God Gargano. So Johnny Gargano was telling the story of how he got the match with Otis and how he accepted that challenge. And then he was interrupted by Damian Priest, who said that he laid out Johnny Gargano at WrestleMania and kind of, not WrestleMania, I'm sorry, Elimination Chamber. And he kind of want to do it again. Gargano kind of dared him, said that they're three grown adults in a golf phase or whatever. And then Finn Balor says that Otis is going to cover him in maple syrup. Pronouns, pal. Otis is going to cover Johnny Gargano in maple syrup and gobble him up. And if he doesn't, he's going to finish him off next week. So Finn Balor basically just offered himself up in a match against Johnny Gargano. And the internet went wild because their favorite NXT match is going to be on Raw. It's going to be Cricketsville. I can tell you that right off rip. Ain't nobody gonna care. Ain't nobody gonna care. Sixth match on the show. Good Lord have mercy. Otis versus Johnny Gargano. Maximum Male Models is in the corner of Otis. Dexter Lumis tried to kidnap Massey. Ended up only choking him out. And Otis loses to Johnny Gargano. So everybody who thought that Vince was controlling the book now. Oh, he's clearly booking this. Oh, who else would book Triple H? Well, Triple H wouldn't book this. Johnny Gargano is on this show for starters, which probably is not something Vince McMahon would want. And him beating Otis is absolutely absurd. Vince never would know nothing to do with that. He beat him with one final beat. They're just building up Johnny Gargano to lose next week. It's basic wrestling. You give a guy a couple of wins just so he can look competent. So when he loses, the other guy looks good. So Johnny's going to lose to Finn Balor, and the match is probably going to be too damn long, and I'm probably going to complain about it next week. All right. Asuka in another worthless match, this time against Carmella. Asuka wins, of course, because it was stupid to think otherwise. Then she calls out Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair says, unless this is about us tearing down the house at WrestleMania, I don't know what you're going to be talking about. Said you can't spell WrestleMania without the EST, which, technically is true. You can't spell WrestleMania without it. Not properly, anyway. Then Carmella attacked Bianca Belair from behind, knocked both her and Asuka down, and then she scampered away. What's up with all the Carmella? Why is both Bianca and Asuka in worthless TV matches when they should be building up their feud? Why are they not feuding? That's what I don't understand. Like, I don't understand why Asuka's continuing to wrestle exhibition matches, quote unquote, when there's no need. There's literally no need. She's already no more contender. She doesn't need to prove herself. We should be telling the story of the two competitors by this point. They don't have as much time as you think, for Christ's sake. In any event, Chelsea Green was backstage, and she was giving Adam Pearce the blues about Ottawa, Illinois. And then she says, how do I supposed to know there was an Ottawa, Canada? And he was like, well, you're from Canada, which is kind of the joke that I made last week. Then Carmella came in and started giving him the blues, too, about what happened out there, about, Asuka and Bianca and all this stuff. So then Adam Pearce decides, you know what? We haven't seen Carmella lose to Bianca Belair enough, so you're going to wrestle Bianca Belair next week. That pained me. It gave me a migraine to even think about them two in the same ring again. And then he left them alone. And the two of them got real chummy while they were in the ring. Introduced each other, shook hands, and talked about how rude and disgusting Adam Pearce is and that they should do something about it. So they're going to form a tag team. I think we're looking at the next Iconics right here. I pitched this idea, a couple of weeks ago. I think the two characters just fit in terms of being in a faction. It works. Carmella and Chelsea Green is great. I like this. As a comedic duo, they could be really fun. So here's to them actually letting this thing breathe and them actually being able to do stuff. Carmella's been doing a lot of interviews talking about her return, and this is the character she wanted to do. And Triple H apparently just let everybody go back to whatever their previous gimmick was. So this is basically a new twist on her NXT gimmick, the gimmick that she had when she first got called up, which was in 2017. So, okay, sure. The horrors continued as Piper Niven was pinned by Candice LeRae. God. Oh, you couldn't have killed this crowd more. Piper Niven would have had to just fall from the sky onto the crowd in order to kill this crowd more than this. Nikki Cross is now following Candice LeRae around like a sick puppy. Apparently she's pulling on what she used to do with not Nikki Cross, Alexa Bliss. Now she's doing it with Candice LeRae, where she's just following Candice around. Piper Niven ran into Nikki while she was outside the ring and just chucked Nikki into the barricade because fuck her apparently. When she got back in the ring, Candice LeRae rolled her up and pinned her. So Piper Niven, Big Bad Beast, got pinned by a distraction roll up by Candice LeRae. I don't know where we're going with this, and to be quite honest, I don't care. I don't want Nikki Cross and Candice LeRae to be friends, so unless they're going to make them a tag team, which why would you? Why would you, really? It's a thing that happened. It's a thing that is occurring. This you would think they would position Piper Niven to be a little bit better, considering her size and her unique skill set. She's, a unique talent on the roster. Why would they have her lose to Candice LeRae? Of all the hundreds of people that's on the roster, they have Piper Niven do the job? I don't know. It's silly. Absolutely silly. All these Triple H signings have been absolutely bizarre. He brought all these people back with no plan. I've already said that, though. I'm just repeating myself. All right. The Miz, he had an announcement. And he announced what I think everybody knew and everybody figured. He is hosting WrestleMania, which is great. It's perfect for The Miz. He doesn't need to wrestle, but he can be out there and do slapstick comedy segments with celebrities and legends and stuff. He fits that role fabulously. Another interesting Miz bit is that everybody is now starting to, I guess a lot of younger people have now seen the clip of The Miz when they did the documentary, and Miz was talking about getting kicked out of the locker room. So there's a lot of younger people who are now being exposed to how Miz was treated by Chris Benoit. And, you know, it's interesting that stuff like that has been out there for so long. And that Miz documentary has been out there for over a year. I think they did a Miz documentary. Was it WWE Evil that thing came from, or was it one of the? I don't think it was an A&E biography, but that story's been out there for a really long time, and I guess there's a certain generation of fans who are just now seeing it, and they're giving a lot of respect to The Miz. Of course, there's mostly just people who hate Chris Benoit, which, all right for that. Benoit kicked him out of the locker room, okay? But, people who have respect for The Miz now, which is great. And I also have respect for The Miz because he could have been like, Luchasaurus or some of those other guys and cried about it, and the boys never would have respected him. But since, everybody knew he was being bullied, and he just kind of went along with it and, took his lumps. He earned the respect of the locker room, and, Undertaker brought him back in, and that was it. So, I mean, yeah, guys can go a little far with the hazing, but, you build some brotherhood. People wanted to make sure that The Miz is not a guy who's just trying to use the business to get himself over, which is what everybody believes. That's why Jim Cornette still hates The Miz. The Miz has been doing this shit for 20 years. And he still doesn't get the respect that, from certain people because he just wants to be famous. Like, if he wanted to be famous and just leave, he could have did that shit a long time ago. You don't sit and keep giving yourself concussions and, look at the man's wife, for Christ's sake. His wife is bodacious, all right? I probably would have just spent my days spending money and banging my wife. I don't need to show up here and, I don't need this that badly. If that's all it was about, he wouldn't have did it for 20 years, And besides, let's say that it was. It's the same thing with Lex Luger, same thing with Sting, same thing with Goldberg. A bunch of guys got into the business just to get famous and have money, So, but The Miz actually put in the work. Not only did he deal with the unjust punishments, even though, depending on how bad the situation was, it might not have been unjust, but I think, Benoit just didn't like him for the reasons, aforementioned reasons. But he also got better in the ring. He was a terrible promo. He worked on it and he got better at that. Those are the kinds of things people should be looking at Miz and, saying that, and I really enjoyed that a lot of NXT talent, like guys like I'm about to call him T-Bar, Dijak and Joe Gacy or whatever. They was talking about how Miz helped them and how Miz is a leader in the locker room and that kind of stuff, because that's the kind of stuff that we should have right now, in terms of how people should be viewing Miz. I don't like the idea that Miz is going to get his credit because, well, everybody who's a victim, or we are perceiving to be a victim, is, all of a sudden underrated and overhated and everything. It's like, no, it's not even because he was a quote unquote victim. It's because legit, he sucked at his job and he got better at it. And in the ring, he got as good as he was going to get, even though he was still capable of having good matches. He wasn't capable of having good matches by himself. He was definitely a guy you had to carry. But promo ability, all that kind of stuff, The Miz is awesome. There's a promo, somebody posted it, of The Miz dressing down Enzo, and I was like, holy shit. For starters, I don't remember Miz dressing down Enzo in a promo on Raw, but also that was tremendous. He absolutely buried Enzo. He planted that fool and then watered it. And that seemed like it was a hit job, to be quite honest. Because I know now it is a fact that WWE sometimes, when they want to motivate people, they'll have one of their peers, or somebody who's a veteran, come at them on the mic and tell them how they really feel in person. I think Ric Flair basically did that to Carlito at one point, where they did a promo with Carlito and Ric Flair, where Ric Flair was supposed to bury Carlito. And he did it, and everybody knew why it happened, because Carlito had a reputation for being lazy. And, Enzo had a reputation for not being very well liked. A lot of people thought that the Adam Cole promo on Karrion Kross and NXT was similar. That, basically people just kind of was like, we don't like this guy. Let's tell him how we really feel. And it happens. But I did not remember that Enzo and Miz promo at all. And I'm telling you, it was infinitely more interesting than what they had on this show. Infinitely more interesting. So I spent way too much time talking about The Miz. But The Miz rules, This segment didn't rule, though, because Seth Rollins came out there, which normally isn't bad. They did a B-hole, A-hole thing where to get the crowd to chant A-hole at The Miz. It was stupid. The Miz is upset. Seth Rollins just wants to get in contact with Logan Paul and wanted Miz to call him because, he is the reason why Logan Paul's in WWE. Miz said nope. Then he called Seth Rollins a goof and ended up getting kicked in the face. Now, Miz apparently has the energy bar of a referee, because he got kicked in the head one time and was down for 10 minutes. So Seth freaking Rollins steals the phone. He unlocks it using Miz's face. I'm guessing there's some kind of face lock thing on the phone. I was wondering how he was going to unlock the phone. And then he calls Logan Paul on FaceTime and asks Logan Paul how Jake was doing, which was the only one of the only two parts of this whole promo that got a good reaction. People was like, oh, because Jake Paul did get, that picture of him getting punched in the head and everything is been floating on the internet for several hours. I don't got nothing against the Paul brothers. I don't know that much about them, but that's one of the things that you can't ignore it, can you? That Jake Paul fought and got beat up. You can't really ignore it. Anyway, Seth Rollins told Logan Paul to come see him on Raw next week. Challenge him to a face-to-face, because we don't have enough face-to-faces on this show and on these programs, for Christ's sake. Logan Paul agreed, and Seth Rollins called him a bitch and hung up on him. All right. I actually don't have a problem with the Logan Paul Seth Rollins thing. It is what it is. So we'll see how their confrontation goes next week. They're just going to stack Raw with confrontations next week. No matches, no promos or anything. We're not going to hear from anybody. We're just going to have confrontations. Austin, speaking of confrontations, Austin Theory says that he's not being talked about, and everybody's talking about John Cena. It's like, actually, no, but everybody's just talking about confronting somebody else on this show. But he starts talking about his own version of hustle, loyalty, and respect, and that he's got a lot of respect in this business. He's going to show John Cena the respect that he deserves, and hopes that, and he expects to get the same. They're really, again, this feels super throwaway. This Austin Theory, John Cena thing, it feels throwaway as hell. Another thing where you could have noticed that if Vince would have a hand in this, it would have came across as being a much bigger deal. I mean, Austin Theory would be on probably one of the first two or three things you see on Raw. He would be long promo every week. Maybe even just straight out calling out John Cena, daring John Cena to show up, all that kind of stuff. Here is Austin Theory pops up. He talks about John Cena. He disappears. You don't see him for the rest of the night. You didn't see him before this. You didn't see him at the rest of the night. Now he's starting to look a little bit generic too, but I still like Austin Theory. I just don't like Triple H's version of this guy. I liked him more when he had more personality. That was just me. All right. Bobby Lashley defeated Elias. I wanted to scream. We did not need this match. All right. We didn't need it. Afterwards, during the match, Rick Boogs was studying Elias. I guess they're going to be a tag team. You know, I saw that Ezekiel was like one of the worst gimmicks or something like that. And people seem to have a lot of fun with Ezekiel. You know, I'm going back and remembering that Ezekiel often got a pretty good reaction when he came out. You know, especially the whole thing with Kevin Owens. And people was kind of enjoying that whole thing. Elias ain't had a reaction since he came back. Literally nobody cares about Elias. This is one of those things where you keep trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. We keep trying to go backwards on gimmicks, and it's not working. We should have just stuck with Ezekiel. You know, I know that Ezekiel was silly, but we still should have just went back to it, like, for Christ's sake. Anyway, Elias loses because, of course, he loses. All right. After the match, Bobby Lashley talked about proving his dominance against Brock Lesnar, but he's still not in a good mood. And he says that Bray Wyatt keeping his name in his mouth. He don't want to play little kid games with Bray Wyatt. He will hurt Bray Wyatt. Keep my name out your mouth. MOUF. Mouth. So as Bobby Lashley is walking up the ramp, Bray Wyatt's Muscle Man dance starts to play. Muscle Man dance, we haven't seen this in a couple of years, have we? You pull up your pants, do the Muscle Man dance. I'm surprised they didn't do the Bobby Lashley bend over thing when he was patting his ass that short amount of time he was doing that. I'm surprised that didn't appear on the screen. But there were different cutouts of Bobby doing different things, him flexing, clips of him flexing and everything. And Bray Wyatt basically mocking that he does the Muscle Man dance or whatever. And that Bobby Lashley should run. And Bobby Lashley was very upset. He was not happy about being mocked by Bray Wyatt. And the internet was unhappy because they don't like them no Bray Wyatt. They don't like Bray Wyatt tall, man. Tall. They don't like that guy tall, man. Everybody's had enough. They're burnt out on Bray Wyatt. Yeah, what is the end game here? What is he supposed to be doing? It's like, well, he's picking a fight with Bobby Lashley right now. That seems to be what he's doing. Why? I don't know. Why was Uncle Howdy doing the weather? I don't know. I don't know. Shit. I don't have all the answers. Yeah, I don't have all the answers. Apparently, Bray Wyatt is just a loose cannon. He's just doing whatever he wants. But I'm guessing that if there is an answer to that question, we will be getting it at some point during this feud. Now, Lashley and Bray Wyatt is another match where I probably wouldn't have done it myself, but I'll be damned if it's not intriguing. I'm very interested in the match. I'm interested in how they will work together. I'm interested in how long this match will be, because I don't see it being that long. You know, Bobby Lashley, this match probably going to go 6-7 minutes, Bray. And that's just being honest. And it probably shouldn't. It probably should go the other way. But, I mean, what are you going to have Bray Wyatt tap out to a full Nelson? I don't know. But, you know, I want to know what are the plans are. What's the idea? Again, it's another situation where the creative is left people wanting because Lashley and Lesnar is not over. You know, it's just, no matter how you can slice it, you try to slice it, it's not over. So, Lashley versus Wyatt is interesting. It's fresh. I just wish we could have gotten here in a different way, you know, and I wish we could start this thing differently. Bray Wyatt mocking Bobby Lashley. I want to know why. You know, I gotta get a why. You gotta give me a reason. All right, so that's Monday Night Raw. I gave it more time than it deserved, but I also sidebarred quite a bit. It was a dreadful show. It was the shits. There was almost no stars. You know, no Roman. They gave you Cody, but Cody didn't do much of anything. Sami Zayn didn't pop up. They didn't do much of anything with anybody else. Seth Rollins and The Miz have been paired together for most of the month for apparently just no damn reason. I don't know why. No big announcements. I guess Trish Stratus was saved to the end of the show, but it's a 3-hour show. You asking her to revive the dead at that point. Now she tried. She did her best, but come on, man. That's a rough one. But outside of the women's tag team championship match, which had some energy to it because of how worked it is and the surprise run in, this was an absolutely dreadful show. But this is just a setup. Next week is going to be huge. Logan Paul is going to be there. John Cena is going to be there. No doubt Sami Zayn will show up. They're going to kick WrestleMania push into high gear next week. And that's the only... Again, WrestleMania was always my limit when Triple H took over. I always said WrestleMania is going to be the one. If you book a whack WrestleMania, if it's some garbage, then it's no holds barred from that point forward. So even though the wick is lit, and I'm ready to set the bomb off because this is how bad this Raw is. I'm going to say he took a week off to set some tables and deal with some injuries and stuff like that. I'm going to throw him some bail. But we're getting closer and closer to me just saying, none of this makes sense. This is stupid. All right. But what do you guys think? Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out. Have a great day.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.